Welcome to Touchline. I'm your host, Anthony Totera, and we are now here at the OSA Center with a special guest, Thomas Rongen of TFC Academy. Thomas, first of all, welcome to the Ontario Soccer Association Center here. And what brings you out here tonight?
Well, I mean, I've been here several times. I've been part of this discussion about long-term player development, which I'm very much in favor of. I've got some experiences when the transition in the United States took place with the developmental academy, where they went away from the ODP structure, very similar here with the provinces as well. So I think it's a very refreshing, it's a very new, and anytime you introduce something new, people are a little bit scared, but I think it's long overdue. Unfortunately, it took probably an 8-1 drubbing by the senior team for people to realize that the current system isn't working the way it should, and that clubs should really have more ownership over the development of players, and in particular long-term development. So I think this is a great step in the right direction. I clearly support that, not only personally, but with our club and our relationship with most of the people in this room that are clubs that we want to work together with, and obviously with the OSA as well, and driven by the CSA with Tony Fonseca. It all makes sense, and at least we can, as I said again, try to develop players that can represent Canada on all levels and get to a senior World Cup eventually. That's what it's all about.
Thomas, your track record speaks for itself. You got a great track record. You've got great experience in the US of A. You and I have spoken about this at another media outlet. We have the talent here in this province. You've seen it. We have it in this country. What's wrong? Why can't we get to where the USA is?
Well, you eventually will, and I think that the presentation today was very insightful. It talked about coaching education as well. It talked about the numbers of coaches, and in my opinion, the lack of educated coaches in this country. So I think there is a disconnect between long-term player development. There's a disconnect with not having enough qualified coaches, and this project will help all of that. Better coaching, better standard and competition, better training ratios, be 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 to games, less tournaments, because that's not the way to go, and more emphasis on, as I said again, a training model with good competition on the weekend that will allow referees to get better, hopefully with the raising of standards of facilities as well, and that all goes hand in hand in raising the bar across the board, which includes some coaching education.
You have a beautiful facility that's just being built out by the Downsview Park, an absolutely fantastic facility. Thomas, let's talk about the development of the youth player again in the province of Ontario. I'm a little bit mystified and confused because I have two boys myself, and they're in the system, and for me it would be an honor, if they're good enough, to push them up to TFC. Or I'll give you a better example. Growing up in Italy, if there was a player in southern part of Italy or in the north part of Italy that was good enough, their dream would be to push them up to a Serie A team. Here, I'll be very honest, here in this city and in this country, it's almost like the opposite. Why?
I think it's a mindset, it's a mentality that's being changed right now, which I think is important, and for people to embrace change. With change, anxiety starts to happen, and the things that you're just referring to, the natural progression of player movement from the smaller club eventually to the professional club, and then eventually onto national teams, hasn't happened in this country for many years now. And I think that with all the things that are being implemented right now, you'll see a more natural progression, because first it takes the understanding of every club to know where they are in the soccer environment, in their infrastructure as well. Some will be teams that will be just recreational clubs, which is very important as well, because we need to get big numbers at the bottom of the pyramid. Some will be in-between clubs that will do a great job in developing players till a certain point, because they don't either have the facilities or the resources to continue to develop the player at 14, 15 when he's excellent. And that's where the academies need to come in, like in the rest of the world, and take over and provide those those clits than the elite player now with a platform to become pro, go overseas, whatever it might be, or just representing the country at the highest level.
You guys have a lot of elite players at TFC Academy. If I'm not mistaken, you went to a tournament in Seattle, the MLS Cup, the Junior Cup there, and I still get people asking me about the players that you brought over there. They're raving about trying to almost grab some of these players for their own pro team. This, to me, is something great, and this is a reflection on, I think, what this is all about here tonight, is the progression. Right. Talk about that.
Well, you're right. Progression is very important, and for us, as the only pro club in Canada, Montreal and Vancouver are part of the American setup. They're in the developmental academy. We feel very strong to give back to Ontario in particular, because that's where our club is based. I could have easily asked our ownership group to travel to the United States every weekend, because we do have the money to do that. But I want to be part of this process, and I want to show that we can compete at the highest level. We went there, played the best MLS youth teams in the respective age groups. Went to the finals in both age groups. Had the Golden Boot winner in Luca Uccello, leading goal scorer Jordan Hamilton in the older age group. Plenty of international scouts, and also big-time college and universities like Duke and Harvard going after our players, and that's nice to see. Obviously, it's somewhat of a reward of the hard work, but it's only the tip of the iceberg. If we can continue in the next few years to push the envelope, continue for everybody to understand where they are in the landscape of Ontario and the OSA soccer, and helping each other, embracing each other, and reaching out to each other, and make this a better and healthier environment for youth development, then I think we're all going to be winners in the end.
Last question, and I'll leave it with you to give me the answer that you think is best. I think in MLS, TFC has been the only of the 3 Canadian teams that has given spots to the Canadian player, Ashton Morgan, Daniil Henry, Macabuya, Matt Stinson, Oscar Cordona. I could go on. Quinlan Roberts is on the rise. This, to me, is something fantastic that TFC has done. Unfortunately, their record hasn't been that great, and since their exception, you can accept that like others. But what I love is you're giving the opportunity to the Ashton Morgans and players like that. You're believing in that. Is that not something that the coaches here in Ontario can say, hey, we want our kid to be like an Ashton Morgan?
I hope they do. Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment have obviously invested heavily in youth development and believe in homegrown talent. Our record speaks for itself in terms of doing that. We've given young players a chance. We've allowed young players to grow here and become senior national team members like Ashton Morgan. We got Terry Dunfield playing for us. And obviously some of the younger players that haven't broken through yet but will, like a Daniil Henry, that will become a legitimate stalwart defender, not only for Toronto FC but eventually for the senior national team as well. People forget he's only 18 years old, just turned 19. So we will continue to believe in that, because our ownership believes in that as well. And it's my job to produce those players going forward, which I feel, based on the talent base in this greater Toronto area, that there is no reason for us not to continue to do the same thing and even produce better players than in the past, because the talent base, what I've seen, I've lived in DC, I've been in New York, I've coached in Los Angeles with Chivas USA, is as good as any other big country or big city in the world. And it's just a matter of on the ground floor doing the right things and making sure and ensuring then that we can provide, and as I said again, get some very, very special players at the top level eventually, which we should.
Well, it's special that you're here tonight. It shows that you care, Thomas, and it shows that TFC cares, because I'll be very honest, I've been to a lot of these other meetings and no other TFC Academy or first team members have showed up. You have, you're here, you listened, and you care to be here, and we thank you for coming, and most importantly, have the communication lines open for all grassroots Ontario coaches and players. Thank you, Thomas.
Well, thank you. Appreciate
Thomas
it.
Rongen, TFC Academy, joining us here on Touchline.